There are so many conflicting feelings that come with having been raised in a Holocaust survivor community and a predominantly Jewish intellectual environment that it doesn't seem to be the wisest or most well advised thing to just impromptu on the topic of uh, Israeli Americans. There's a number of reasons why I disdain making preparations, lists of various categories, and so on. One of the things that I've had to deal with as a result of being tortured by um, researchers in the Jewish Holocaust community, working with King Crimson when I was a child, and being rescued, surprisingly enough, by some deaf experts from the Jewish community, and then forced to mingle with the people who did it casually to, convey the atmosphere of civic acceptance and understanding, despite the fact that some of them are clearly a danger to the peace, is that Venus Gabriel, Genesis, pitched this idea that if it isn't spontaneous, it isn't of the essence, which is sort of sick, but he gets away with it because he's a grandmaster of the improvisational in music, and people always do like this to music, even though it's stupid. Being deaf is a lot better because you're less likely to be brainwashed and injured permanently by psychotics like the Beatles when you're deaf. How I envy people who never had to listen to that malicious stupidity. But they counseled my potentials as a musician. But at the age of 6 years old, I danced the hora at the Pittsburgh Folk Festival in front of thousands of people, unaware of the size of the audience because they brought us in through the stage door outside, and we came up onto the stage and there were lights in our eyes. So that was pretty much of a surprise to me, but I enjoyed doing it, and I loved the Jewish community, and I was taught to love the Jewish community, and I was taught about some of the terrible things that happened to them. My father expressed his anger, abiding anger at Germany, which of course makes it very chilling that my father's poisoners put Donahu as a signifier for Netanyahu and his buddy in the name of the Green Party as a promotional symbol, advertisement for what they pulled on Mount Desert Island on his obituary. You know, killing the father because of the charming little girls who were hired to pick on me and then go, to the Godzillas in the Christian right who had kidnapped and tortured me and rendered me incomprehending. As a Holocaust survivor community, special education, they gassed me and so on. And they knew, they must have known, Brecker used to say top shelf, that there was a place I could hide, and I crawled into the top shelf. And then they brought in the black kids, much younger, 20, 30 years later, 40 years later, to say, don't say like Anne Frank, you see, because that's a culturally elite category. You know, if you're from Israel, you're a cultural elite, you're entitled to the RTC. To disdain white injuries and terror because he's a sissy. That's what the NAACP got away with saying while they were making films, classified films, psychiatric films of the neuroplasm, in other words, peep show films. And because there had been this Holocaust simulation experiment, I suspected that Mount Desert Island was clocked AIDS as a Holocaust simulation experiment. And there was no way I could get away from the idiot, you know, peep hired by Penis Gabriel, Amanda Harcourt, who was sniveling and sizzling. Acid Head could have saved John Lennon, you know, and all of this stuff. But it's clear that Gail Burstyn worked with Yoko Ono and John Lennon. She wouldn't be today punching the clock with the terrorists in the international clubhouse movement, working from the military corrections scene, that prison riders are being inspired to work for under Warhol and Trump. You know, Trump and Mumia are partners. That's been proven by what CMU pulled with Peter Shaw. And Gail Burstyn and Yoko Ono were sort of the brainstormers of this, and Ono and Burstyn wouldn't have been working together all along if John Lennon was really killed. He pretended to be killed to create a paradox of confiscation over the entire plant. So the spirit continues, right? This is sort of like Cyril Wecht's morbid, you know, conceptualization of, hope in the post-Holocaust survivor community, what Herbert Agar called the surviving remnant of European Jewry. Surviving remnant, how you like it, will make you the surviving remnant, is what that got into their heads, of course. You know, and if you have a situation like the one in Pittsburgh where there's all of these mysterious demarcations, Niles Schwartz probably spray painted in 1966. The picture was Kodak dated, "I love Sarah Saran," on the garage door. This was Cyril Wecht's neighborhood, author of Great Secrets, where Gail Burstyn emerges. You have Casper, the friendly ghost, right? That's named Casper Weinberger. He lived on Mount Desert Island. So you have this continuing spirit idea, right? And Wecht and Pittsburgh managed to arrest a Jew. I didn't think they had it in them. They arrested John Schulman for book theft. They probably won't arrest Cyril Wecht for stealing Kennedy's brain, but he is the one who poisoned me with a nerve agent. You know, I found his name at the spectrochemical laboratory behind all the bushes in a part of Wilkinsburg. The police pulled up and said, "Sonny, I wouldn't walk around here dressed like this." And I said, "Well, I'm not dressed like that." You know, but the point was, I saw a Batman come out of his house with like a Klan outfit, you know, like a mask from D.W. Griffith. I mean, there were organized patrols to protect the black community back there in Wilkesburg. And behind all of these shrubs, there's a spectrochemical laboratory, and they have signs, Cyril Wecht, right? Okay, so we know where the spectrochemical came from. And who stole Kennedy's brain? We don't have to prove it. We know. It's obvious. I love Sarah Saran, and they give me a Saran S. That's enough evidence to make the official pronouncement that that is what I believe, at least. And they'll say, "Oh, you know, belief is blimey who when you're a paranoid schizophrenic." Well, one of the things they're covering with this claim of paranoid schizophrenia is that they poison me. Another thing is that they have this Svengali system that hypnotizes people to believe that there's a feud between left and right, black and white. So they hit one, and then they hit the other, and it's anarchic harmony, they call it. Robert Anton Wilson, this runs here in the state of Washington, where Frank Herbert came up with what Nelson Harrison calls black psychology, right? A white man came up with the idea of a black man sacrificing an innocent white, and soul catcher. So, I mean, yeah, they work together. It's a Swami Nostra that just wants to get rid of the weak and build the strong for an arc of colors, and that's their mindset, you know, the British strategy. They don't care about human rights. Dawn Hofstra, the brutal pedophile who had me in custody and was messing with me really horribly as a child, and the suspicion that Proctor knew all along, got up at the International Folk Festival and said over a microphone to thousands of people, international terrorism will take the place of human rights, over and over and over again. And his filmmaker friends from this lobby were like, "Wow, wow," because Pittsburgh's like that. Pitt thinks the nature of reality, not the nurture of reality. The nature of reality is to conquer, to trick, to fool, to face lie, to be a lawyer under Martin Ordenberg's papal flag. And they torture Jimmy Curry, and then they laugh at him about the Mount Desert Island scenario, right? And they made PEEP, they call it psychiatric. And all of this is hardwired into a denial mechanism of filmmakers who include the Jewish community. So the Jewish community has, sort of an entanglement system. They get like the pimps all rally at Alcoholics Anonymous. They say, and they bring in the Christians, he had sex. Say it again, Charles. Sex. Can't you say it again, sir? Sex. He had sex. Oh my goodness. He owes the coup. We will either take it from Pussy Ball or Cersei Kennedy, or we will take it one way or the other. And this is the way they think. They don't believe, they promoted free sex because they knew it would lead to slavery in their system. So that's how they got rid of people, who punished people who resisted the draft. And what the draft was about was making American loyal to the Axis. You see, the French were loyal to the Japanese in Vietnam, and we backed them up at them being because of the arm twisting of Joe McCarthy. So we went over to the Axis, and that's why Trump says that Paris is the capital of Germany, because Hitler would pose in front of the Eiffel Tower in his days of, fanfare in Nazi Germany. And they have this idiot idea that Trump doesn't mean anything when he says that the Iraq, operation blazing flags, or whatever it was won in the jungles of Southeast Asia, blazing flags in Iraq or whatever. But it was, because in Southeast Asia we switched over to the Axis. And of course the Axis mindset is to exclude people who are different. Terrible stories come out of Syria and Yemen about Israeli drones bombing school buses. What the hell? My father was a school bus driver. Probably Netanyahu and Trump said, well, we'll send Jimmy a message, And then they say, well, if you think he's so neat, Yemen children, wait till you see our Mount Desert Island tapes. Let's look at what the hairy dude does when he's being in psychiatric and PEEP by the NAACP. And this is like their Holocaust simulation experiment. Why shouldn't we burn the joke? They gassed me in Kings Estate, and all of this is going on in the context of a claim that it was the Jewish Defense League because of a letter in which I said that Leslie Katz was wrong to phrase what she had done as though she wanted me to be more aggressive to her, because I'm not an aggressive person, and it could the sort of thing that could lead to deranged individuals like Thawes Gordon coming to believe that that's what women wanted, because that's what Leslie was saying. Why should you get another chance? Don't tell me things like that. Leslie Katz, you're endangering women, and they come in with the women. Her friend made a movie called The Storm. Vicky Funari, very icky funeral, right? Comes in and they say, oh, he's obsessed. He wants some. And they bring in Claire with her turban from Pittsburgh Filmmakers, saying, we're going to get into the neuroplasm with our peep and see if he wants some. And they had a little eye in the door of the Clem shack where they could watch the queer bait when he was hammered in with neurocoma with a big-breasted girl who wanted him to perform on her and allowed him to perform on her for the very first time. He was a cherry boy who they were making a fuck boy for their extermination program. And you say, well, don't pin that on the Jews. I'm not Ollie. We'll all be income free when Ollie's in D.C. I'm telling it like it is. See, that's not pinning it on anybody. If you look at the Jewish community's inside circle, they had a fundamentalist tripartite going. Gorbana Farr and Leslie Katz were the same sort of thing. Like one was doing it with Frippy and Colin Powell, and the other was doing it with Oliver North and Ronald Reagan. But what they were doing was playing this shell game, where they were using money to raise money to bomb, the Nicaraguan attempt to gain self-esteem that Roberto Clemente believed in, from years of oppression by Trump types like Somoza. And the Iranians who Foucault worked with the Ayatollah, to get Exocet missiles, which they were using on Marines, so that Ollie and Reagan could keep mining Nicaraguan harbors. Well, Frippy was doing the same sort of thing, playing this game with Leslie Katz's letter, so that they pull off the AIDS program. Of course, they lured me to Tacoma for the COVID bomb. That's no mystery. They poisoned me in the mouth and so forth. And like Cyberstock, everything, they say they have the penny glitz that will make them the Donald Trump of the movie. And that's what Lennon was doing. He was starring in this movie, which was his own script, the How I Won the War of, behind How I Won the War. The Blazing Saddles fall of How I Won the War, where the movie sets fall and you see what's going on behind with Lennon's illusion. They used a double, made a fantasy, and that's what they pulled after they blew away JFK. And it was all ideally situated, just like Jackie Kennedy was ideally situated. Jackie Onassis, that CIA troll, was ideally situated in the limousine. So they have trannies from the prison system ideally situated to say, we demand the right to finish the movie by the Japanese method of injecting people at the audition for Penis McCartney. He's criminally deranged. He must be sitting there in his post-acid psychedelic world just thinking, oh, they don't exist, they don't exist. I can just pick them up and exterminate them because they're an illusion. I've made everybody believe what's not true. It's all an illusion. It's all an illusion.